'Tis your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Damn, Perk did this?
I don't need no one to save me. I was born to be the greatest. All that time in that basement, all that time isn't wasted. Rapping getting faded. I just wanna tell my mom that I made it. Just wanna be the topic of the conversation. Used to rock the gold plated. Now I'm wearing gold chains like I'm famous.
What is going on? What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday Eve. Friday Eve, my bad. It's your guy, Kings and Dreams, and I definitely appreciate y'all rocking out with me again. Second time live streaming this week. Again, I appreciate you guys, man. And I'm bringing back my guest for the second time this week. So, the first time, if you guys didn't catch the live stream Tuesday, we talked about stepfathers and are stepfathers needed? Are they considered simps? Things like that, right? So definitely go back and check that out whenever you get a chance. Now, today, interesting topic, right? Because as you all know, this channel mainly focuses on self-improvement, traveling, right? Interrelationship dynamics, all of these things, all of the sort, right? And so I know one of the things that is talked about is traveling, get your passport, or if you need a visa, right? And that's cool. And I think that is one important way for people to not only better themselves, but better their environment, right? But I do think what is important, especially when it comes to us in the travel space, whether you want to call it Blue Book Gentlemen, Passport Bros, whatever, everyone is expats, everyone's under this big umbrella, right? But I think the most important thing is that we have to have a mastery of ourselves. And what does that entail? I think you would rather hear it from a man who I would say is not only very book smart, but very savvy, definitely has the education and has definitely put in the work to help all of us, especially men, become better versions of ourselves, to master ourselves. What is it to actually know oneself, right? Because we can say that we know each other pretty well, but to understand what it is, our fears, our insecurities, our desires, right? To truly know oneself and to be comfortable with all of these things. And I think that this is a very important conversation. And I can't wait to have this conversation with you all. And without further ado, I definitely got to bring my guest on, man. My man, Todd Allyn. What's going on, brother?
Hey, how you doing, Kings, man? I appreciate you once again, man. Thank you for giving me your platform.
Absolutely, man. Mi casa, su casa, man. Whatever's mine is yours, brother. You know what I mean? So,
you're a real one, brother. You're a real one.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. And I appreciate this. And so, for those who did catch some of the Tuesday live stream, I think we were on for about 3 hours, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do another 2 or 3 hours, right? In order to break this whole thing down.
Right.
I know some people can do the live stream for 5, 6, 7 hours. Shout out to my big bro Andre Love Crossing Borders. Like I look at his live stream times, it'd be 5 or 6 hours. I'll be like, damn, dog. Yeah, the 3 hours sometimes be the max. I think maybe one time I did a live stream 5 hours or something like that. But after that, yeah, I crashed. I was like, yeah, I'm going to bed.
It gave you a lot of content, didn't it?
Yes, it actually did give a lot of content.
Yeah.
It did give a lot of content and a lot of context. But speaking of context, right? And so, as I was saying kind of in my mini monologue, I was stating that right, when it comes to guys in general, but particularly guys in this space, one of the main things that is talked about is get your passport, go abroad. But the thing is, you ever hear you can move wherever, but your problems will follow you wherever you go.
Yeah, you can't outrun yourself.
Right. You cannot outrun yourself. So I think, and I want you to speak to it, but I think having the master of oneself, knowing oneself inside out
Yeah.
is, it's true, because I believe the biggest battles that we fight, Todd, is the ones in the mirror, right? The ones
Yeah.
where we're looking at ourselves, because we can run from everything else, whether we display something to our friends, our family, social media, right? But when we're getting dressed in the morning, right, we're shaving or whatever the case is, we have to stare that person in the mirror, and we have to look at all of our physical imperfections, mental imperfections. You check your bank accounts, financial imperfections, right? Especially for those who believe in a higher power, your spiritual imperfections. So, right, I think that this is a great conversation, and I kind of want to have you run away with this, because I think and I believe that with the mastery of self, once we truly understand and inhibit all of the factors, as I previously mentioned,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think the sky is no limit.
Correct. Correct. I think you're correct. I think that the only limitation we have in our lives is the limit that we put on ourselves as far as our imagination is concerned.
Mhm.
You know, and the science of self mastery is the idea of getting to know yourself. For example, one of the first questions I ask when I'm doing my coaching is, "Who are you?" Right? And what's amazing is that most people would identify themselves by what they do,
Right.
right? By their jobs. And their jobs are external of them. Or they may say, well, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a brother. Again, those are titles. And so the science of self mastery goes deeper than that to find out what the essence of this person is, because that's who you truly are, right? You can have all kinds of labels, but those labels don't get to who you are. Allow me just to make mention of this from a spiritual perspective, because you said so. Um, when Moses in scriptures, and some people might believe in the Bible, others believe in other things, but I'm just going to use the Bible as an example. When Moses went to free the Israelites, and he said, "Whom should I say sent me?" And he said, I am that I am." And so that goes to the essence, right? The essence of the Most High. And so when Yeshua, some people call him Jesus, his mama called him Yeshua. I'm going to call him Yeshua. Uh, when they asked him who he was, he said, "I and my Father are one." So again, going to the essence of who we are. And that is just, for me, that's an example of getting to know who we are, because our actions and our activities are based upon our values and are based upon our self-reflection, right? If a
Right.
person believes that they are they take things from other people, that they're a thief, then that's their values, and then that's how they respond to things. So we don't get far away from our values, and that is exhibited by our behaviors. So we have to have a positive understanding of who we are, and that dictates how we respond or how we act in a lot of different ways.
Right. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I think, I think that, and I'll kind of have, and this is kind of like a little joke here, but especially for a lot of us who have worked in corporate America, we when someone asks, who are you, right? And typically it's an open-ended question, and we're supposed to lay down like our accolades and things of that sort, right? And you being a professor of many years, when someone asks you that, right, like it's kind of wired, and you say, oh, I've been a professor for X amount of years. I got my degree from here, and so on and
Yep.
so forth, right? And so
Yep.
it's naturally kind of embedded in us, because I remember on Tuesday you kind of mentioned that, and I wanted to save my response for tonight.
Okay.
As we hyper focus on tonight's topic, but I was saying that, like, yeah, because I do that too. If someone were to ask me, hey, who are you? I say, hey, I'm a father. I got this, I got that. You know what I mean? And instead of really just breaking down, okay, what type of person are you? Not what have you accomplished, what have you achieved? And I
Hmm.
think that in today's society, we are so hardwired to have that innate response, right? So
Yeah.
how so in my, at least in my next question, and I see a couple people in the comments, and I'll give a couple of shout outs here. But my question to you is that how does the science of self mastery kind of deprogram, or at least realign? I don't want to say deprogram, because deprogram is the wrong word, but realign
Yeah.
to actually tap into who their actual selves is, but not their accolades.
Right. Okay. That's a great question. And it's okay if you say deprogram, because we've been programmed our whole life. I mean, for example,
Yeah.
when we are born and someone gives us a name, right? And they said, well, on a birth certificate, well, this is your name. Legally, that's hearsay, right? And
Mm,
so we don't know that to be true. But we've accepted that because that's what we've been told. So from the very beginning, we accept what we've been told by those people that we trust and we know, but then they've kind of been hoodwinked at the same time.
right.
And so we're programmed, right? Because I always say all men and women are equal until they leave the hospital, because we go to different environments and then we're shaped by what's around us. We're shaped by the closest people in our household, but then also the neighborhoods that we go to. And so we develop this self schema based upon what we've learned about our environment and what people say that's around us. We pick up our worldviews, we pick up our attitudes. Very young kids learn how to manipulate their parents based upon the attitudes that their parents have and how they respond to the kids. All of these different things, but they don't necessarily teach us who we are. And so we grow up and we develop what's called life traps, right? That we may have a sense of abandonment or instability, or we feel unworthy, or we're hypersensitive to different things, or we there's a lot of things that go into that based upon experience, and we all have some sort of trauma. And so what the science of self-mastery does is it uses neuroscience, it uses different levels or different forms of psychology, even economic behavior, etc. And I created a survey that people can take to kind of diagnose what are some of those things that we have that sabotage us from being the absolute best person that we can be. And then we go through the process of dissecting that and peeling back the onion to really find out what it is that you want to be or who you want to be. Then we develop what are the things that a person that is that have to do in order to have the things that you want. Because as we're growing up in life, and you could probably resonate with this,
Mhm.
we always think of the actions and activities that we have to do to get the things so that we can be this person. And it's backwards. We have to first have in our mind's eye who it is that we want to be or to become. Then we do the things that that person does in order to have the things that that person has. So it's kind of backwards. And so the deprogramming, if you will, or the getting down to the neurological essence of this person. It's not action or activity based. It's self-viewing based.
Okay. Understood. Before my next question, let me just give a couple of shout outs here.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Real podcast clips. Salute to the Yachty family. Yes, sir. I appreciate you, man. Shout out to my man. I believe you're out in Toronto, man. But shout out to you. My man, the Flyboy Way, THEFLYBOY. Don't ask why, just check out the channel. My A1 Day One. That's my A1 Day One, man. Shout out to Knowledge and Relationships. My man M3 says, salute KND. Definitely get the likes up. The likes are free 99. Guys, so for those of you guys who may be watching live or may watch later. So quick tidbit. For those who are not content creators, right? And if you see, we talk about donations and things like that. The best way to donate is to like, because when you like the video, it gets in the algorithm. So the likes actually can be worth more than the super chats. Now, I'm a capitalist, so I never said those not super chat. But what I am saying is, and on a serious note, the most important thing is to click that like button. The like button is free 99. And this video will spread throughout the algorithm. So all videos, definitely appreciate that. So get the likes up. Salute to the family. All right. Let's see.
I want to give a shout out to Flyboy, because I saw the one that you did with him when
Which
he was
one?
having
We did a few.
Well, the one in particular was when he was having some trouble getting in and out of a particular country that I will not name.
No, that wasn't Fly. That was that was Philly Dom.
Philly Dom. Okay. All right. I apologize, Flyboy, but hey, shout out to you anyway, man.
that was Philly Dom. Yeah, shout out to my man Philly Dom. Yeah, he's good, but shout out to Philly Dom, man. That was a good one, though. That definitely was a good one.
And I do want to tell you too, man, that if at any point I get long-winded, because I'm a trained circus clown by having been a college professor, so I need some help every now and then, man. So help me out.
Oh, no worries, man. I mean, sometimes I can get long-winded too, so it's all good. I think that when it comes to conversations like these, right? It can make people uncomfortable, right? And actually, hold that thought. Let me just give a couple of more. Nope, I think I'm good with all the shout-outs for now. But yeah, so kind of going back into what I was saying. So when it comes to conversations like these, it can make all of us a bit uncomfortable because, right, we have to because as I mentioned, like we can inadvertently or advertently put on a facade, but the one thing that you can't lie, you can never lie to yourself, right? And so when you talked about the survey, and actually I will actually show my own survey so people can actually take a look and see what the survey results actually entail. But just kind of going back into what I was saying. See, talk about long-winded. I'm doing it right now. But
it's your show, bro.
but the thing is, as I mentioned, right? So when you have that unveiling of the mask, if you will, right? There's there's you and you, right?
Yeah.
I hear. Actually, you go ahead.
No, and part of self-mastery is you got to be comfortable with you, faults and all. When I developed, you know my backstory of kind of how I got started with this, and there was some iterations before I got to this part.
But you could let the people know if you like.
Okay, but yeah, I was, as I said, I was a circus animal for over 2.5 decades. And what I mean by that is a college professor teaching economics. But the way I taught economics is the study of choices. And so, we talked about that everything and everyone has bias. And so you have to be able to uncover the bias based upon, the choices that people make. So macro and micro, although they sound very
similar,
intellectual, it's very simple. Micro is individual choices. Macro is a combination of a lot of people making the same choice. And so that is part of the training that, or the term that you used, not brainwashing, but the programming that we go through as we're growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is that when we become adults, we do things, we have patterns that we continue to follow. And those are neurologically based because, neurologically speaking, every decision that we make has some sort of, electrical impulses. But if we continue to do certain things all the time, we have those hardwiring habits. And when we do something different, it becomes very difficult and challenging. So we always revert back to, what we've known and what we feel comfortable with. And so part of self-mastery is digging deep, uncovering the moles that are deep within our lives, and then having to deal with that. And that becomes very uncomfortable. And it impacts everything, our relationships with our significant others, our relationships with our kids, our relationships with people at the job. At the job, we can fake it till we make it. But then when we get home, we have this level of stress, and then this level of stress would then impact us physically, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. A lot of people have church trauma, call it religious trauma, and they carry that stuff. All of this stuff is based upon the training that we've had since we were young, and we don't take the time to really dig deep to find out what are some of these life traps that we've had and how do we deal with it.
Mm.
So I had to go through that same thing when I left the college, and then I had identified myself as a college professor. And so now when that's gone, who am I? Right. Mm-hmm. And a lot of men suffer that if they have job loss or if they're failed relationships or something like that, they go through this depression. And so that depression is because it's a loss of self-schema. You lose to yourself because this is how you identified yourself.
Right.
And so I was my first client when I was developing this. And, I started with the science of how to be happy. Then I went to the science of manliness. And then this whole thing came to the science of self-mastery. All of those other things are part of it because a lot of those things are the basis of it. But it all comes down to what Imhotep said, know thyself. And this is probably going to be, for many people, one of the hardest things that they do. But once they get through that, they will be a totally different person from what they are now. That the same things that those life traps that they have at this moment, I teach people how to eliminate them completely to be something totally different than what they are now.
Mm. Now, so let's kind of circle back a little bit.
Yep.
What made you decide to come up with this? And I know that you said that you were kind of tinkering with the names and things of that sort, right? Mm-hmm. But what made you come up with this concept originally?
Mm-hmm.
And then how long did it take for you to fine tune it, if you will? And there's always going to be some fine tuning, but at least comfortable enough for you to present it out to the masses.
Well, I kind of looked at my life and looked at the different experiences that I've had. And I'm like, why is it that I seem to get in my own way? Mm-hmm. Right. And why is it that I've been in situations where I've been around people who are uber successful in their own fields, but why did it seem like I was always lacking? And so what I decided to do was to to put it to the test, to use a lot of the certificates that I have, a lot of the knowledge and information I've had, anything from neuroscience, where I've taken courses from universities in Russia, how we learn. I've taken some courses from that, took the course from Yale on how to be happy, all of these different things. And I've taken the information and I put it all together and said, what would happen if I combine all these things together to create one unique kind of survey that could uncover what are some of my life traps that I can then overcome. And I put the questionnaire together, and then I created the diagnostics. And when I took the quiz or the survey, I was shocked. And then I self-reflected, and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Why I was self-sabotaging. What are some of the feelings that I've had in terms of abandonment, and why am I feeling so much stress, and where does all that come from? And how did the lack of a relationship with my father, how did that impact me? Or even how my disrespect that I had for such a long time with my stepfather, only to recognize when he was on his deathbed, the value that he provided for me. How did all of these things impact my previous relationships throughout my entire life? And as I said, I thought a certain thing, but then what I found out when I dug deep and peeled back the layers, if you will, I realized that there were certain parts of my identity that were fractured. And in order to get to the point where what I want in my life, I had to repair those things. And that's why I came up with this science of self-mastery, and doing the research, looking at the neuroscience of it, looking at even the biology of it, the evolutionary psychology, all these different things. And then I sought individuals that could help counsel me. And putting this together and looking at the possibility and the probability of the success of this, it has really changed from what I was to what I'm becoming.
Okay, excellent. And so I have a question in reference to our travelers expat community, right? And so as I was saying earlier in my opening monologue, mini monologue, if you will, and I was saying that there's a lot of us that will tell guys, hey, get your passport. And I'm one of them, but I also try to add context with that, right? Because I also say, don't travel if, quite frankly, if you're a piece of shit, right? You know what I mean? So don't, because the thing is, it's like, don't go overseas. Like if you're a piece of shit and you don't know how to conduct yourself, right? And I just don't want people to say, oh, well, I was watching K&D's channel and, he told me to, go overseas and you go over there and start a whole heap of trouble. And it's like, no. I said, yes, please travel, expound your mind, but make sure that your mind is right as well. So with that, all that being said, excuse me. So do you think that there is a portion of brothers who are traveling that are either afraid to do the self-mastery to understand themselves, and they use their passports as a way of escapism? That's one part of the question. The second part of the question is, do they knowingly do this and try to seek different results?
Yes and yes.
Okay, expound.
Yes. Sometimes people think that by changing your location, in many instances, it allows you to put a mask on in front of different people who don't know you.
Right.
Okay. So it's a way of escapism, as you said. But then it comes down to, over time, you realize that, you're the same person. You're the same person, but just in a different location, right?
Right.
Some people do that knowingly, right? Because they're looking for a change. But what ends up happening is that if they have not addressed those life traps that they may have come into, well, that is part of their lives, like deep down, they're still going to self-sabotage, right? They're still not going to be able to reach certain levels that they desire, because they have these things which they take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, if you will. So these things, an example would be mistrust, right? So if you mistrust people here, it's going to be even more when you go to a new place where no one, or you're just learning the language or something like that. You're going to be very mistrustful there as well, which may lead to isolation. And then if you have a level of isolation and you're not in the place where you're comfortable with, I mean, that leads to depression. That leads to a lot of different things and bad feelings, and you'll be ready to come home, very quickly. So these are some of the things that you really have to be aware of, is that there are some deep-seated things that are deep down within us that we haven't addressed, and that we continue to do habitually, and we expect different results.
All right.
Yeah. So you're spot on with that. I'll give you an example for me. One of the things that was big for me was abandonment, right?
Yeah.
And what I come to realize is that I would purposely, subconsciously, I should say, do certain things that would place me in a position that I could be abandoned, right? And sometimes people are comfortable. They're not comfortable they're comfortable with being something. They're comfortable with those things that they're accustomed to doing habitually. Right. And they're uncomfortable with doing things that are different. So they revert back to their previous thing because it's comfortable. And so that's what I was doing. And I can look back in many of my relationships, family, friends, significant others, where that was a part of it. And so then I would blame them. But no, it was all about me. It was what I was doing. Right. And so, that coming to grips with that was a challenge. So I still know that I'm him, right? But, but I realized that as him, I was doing things that may have made people uncomfortable for them to say, hey, you know what, enough's enough, peace.
Right. Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And, and so after this, we'll actually get to my survey of what I did, and we'll break it down. But one of the things that I did notice from the survey, it essentially highlighted where I have the fear of not. Again, I'm paraphrasing, and we'll all break it down. But essentially, from what I read was that I have a fear of not pushing the trigger on time. And I can say that it's I will say that it's mainly helped me, because for me, I'm a very methodical thinker. I'm not one of those people that are very reactionary, especially the older that I get. When I was younger, I used to be very, reactionary, especially, young, and, you got testosterone, and, you want to prove you're the big man and all that. But you know what I mean? Like I for me, I'm comfortable, and like I've already proven a lot of stuff. So, but I will say, when it comes to me strategizing, I can see where sometimes, like, it can be time to push the trigger, so to speak, but I'm still, strategizing and making sure that all of my T's are crossed and all of my I's are dotted, and I'm, looking at it a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth time, and it's like, okay, it's ready to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that being said, I do want to actually pull up my chart so you all can actually see with what of these surveys would look like. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, you did both of them.
Yes, I didn't see I didn't see the longer version one, but excuse me. But the other version I did see.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I'm mute now. Yeah, so I was saying that I believe this is from the second version.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, yeah, all right. So let me know if you're able to see my screen clearly.
Yep, I can.
Okay, all right. So TSOSM. This stands for the Science of Self Mastery. Identity Diagnostic Pro Report. Client Kings and Dreams. So I took this 3 days ago, June
Yes, sir.
9th.
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. So the welcome message this states this is not a mindset quiz. This is a coded diagnostic mirror. Okay. When you're reading, what you're reading, pardon me, is a reflection of how your current behaviors, thought patterns, and identity signals reveal your position in the journey of legacy building. Unlike unlike surface level assessments, this report is designed to help you see the code behind your actions and the code what must evolve. You don't need more motivation, you need precision. This report delivers it. Okay, great. Now, how to use this report. Every section below was generated directly from your words, tone, and behavioral choices. What does HAL stand for?
That's the diagnostic tool that I use.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. All right. So HAL interprets each answer through a color coded identity matrix, layering it with narrative meaning, archetype mapping, and fault line detection. All right. So now it's explaining how to read the matrix. Green, you are aligned and acting with clarity. Yellow, there's awareness, but it's unstable or delayed. And then red, there's friction between what you say and what you do. So essentially, red means you're full of shit. Yellow means you're not too sure, and green means okay, you standing on business. All right.
Right, right. I need to change that. Yeah, I need to change the wording on that to mean that. Yeah, yeah. I'm taking notes, man. I'm taking notes.
No worries, no worries. This report unlocks a coded set of action misses. If applied, will eliminate momentum gaps, reduce internal conflict, and accelerate your transformation timeline. Take it seriously, and you'll never operate the same again. Okay. All right. So this is section 1, color-coded identity matrix. All right. So identity domain, decision activation, what it means, and then your signal. So do you want to just break what this down means, like identity
Yeah.
domain?
Yeah, identity domain is basically if we're talking about your self schema, how you respond to things, your actions, right?
Yeah.
And so decision activation, as it says, what it means, how you respond in moments of stress or delay, and then your signal would be how you answered things on the survey, and then you'd have your color status. So like emotional framing, whether you self-regulate in chaos or you get pulled by your emotions. You mentioned before that you're less reactionary than when you were younger.
Right.
Your identity ownership. If you lead yourself or outsource your power, do you take control? Or when I talk about identity ownership, that would be for me. Are you victim? Do you feel that you're a victim or do you take responsibility for what you do, right? Your
Right.
legacy awareness, right? Clarity of your future vision. Who are you becoming? And legacy is something that most men are afraid of death because they're afraid that they won't be remembered long after they're alive. And so that's the concept of legacy awareness, especially as we get older. Men, as we get older, we realize that, hey, you know what? We're not as immortal as we thought we were when we were younger.
Right.
And then how, our communication alignment, if your words match with your deeper role and your vision, and this is the communication part. I think when you're talking about the manosphere or the passport brothers, that to me is one thing that I see that is lacking, that communication alignment, right? Because when a lot of guys travel abroad, they say this is what they want to do, but then their actions and activities, they exhibit something different.
Okay.
And then the internal friction, the hidden contradictions, and then execution readiness, your willingness to act right now without delay. And then, as you said, I mean, you're a very meticulous person. I am at times, but sometimes we overanalyze, and so we have a paralysis of analysis. And so then that creates a whole nother thing of not shame, but we're like, man, I should have done X, Y, Z. How many times do we say, hey, I should have did this at that particular point in time?
Oh, absolutely.
It's important to remember that a rolling stone is easier to change the direction because it's moving. But we want to push it, then we want to stop and then try to change direction, and it's just too much energy, and we waste too much time doing that. So,
right.
Those are like the domains that this kind of uncovers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to go back into eternal friction because that was where I particularly got read, right? So it says stop the cap. So the eternal friction, hidden contradiction between desires and results, knowing what I want but not getting there, right? And so as you just mentioned, right? So too much analysis can lead to paralysis, right? So I definitely agree with that. Where there have been times in my life, especially when it comes to business decisions, right? Mainly business decisions, right? And where there were times where I'm like, I'll kind of hold off before I pull the trigger. And then, and then it's like, oh, I missed my shot, right? And then there's times where like I'll see either a counterpart or an associate that pulled the trigger so fast and they didn't get a chance to look at everything from all angles. And now they're kind of messed up. So I would say that for me, I've always been the type to look at either my peers or my elders and look from their mistakes and try not to make at least minimalize those of my own, right?
Yeah, but the danger with that is this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want their life?
No, I don't want their life. I want my own.
Exactly.
And this is where it goes into the the too much analysis is the paralysis, right? Because the thing is that okay, you can study, but there comes a time where you actually have to take the test. You actually have to take the SAT. You can do the PSAT all you want, but essentially, if you want to go to a Division I college, right? Or you want to go to you want to go to a Yale, you want to go to a MIT, Berkeley. I mean, I could go on and on, but especially you have to take the SAT, right? So, and I will say that I hold my own self accountable, and we're having fun here, but like this is my personality, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. It's like you have to know who it is that you want to become, right? So, but becoming that, but having your values, right? What you value. What I know of you, King, is you value your family, right?
Yes.
You value your family, and you want to be a representative of them. You want to be a good father. But being a good father means that you at times you have to be vulnerable to your son and talk to him and know that he's a young man who's growing. You've been where he wants to go,
Right.
right? So you have to be relatable. And so that's a quality. That's not the label is you're the dad, right? But the quality is that you're approachable and you're empathetic and you're kind and you are not a disciplinarian, but you exhibit discipline. You not only tell him, but you show him. And so that's who you are,
Right.
not necessarily what you do or what you are, but that's who you are. You are that empathetic, that caring, that sacrificial person who's present. And that's who King is. And if you just let me use your name, like use Kings and Dreams, right?
Yeah, sure.
A lot of people play checkers, and checkers is reactionary, right? Checkers, they move, you move, and it's very, very quick, fast, or a lot quicker and faster than chess.
Right.
But self-mastery is a chess game. And why do I say that? Because the most important piece on the board is the king. All other pieces move around different directions, but their sole purpose is to either protect their king and to capture the other. So self-mastery for either men or women is protecting the item which is most important.
Right.
And that's you. You're putting on your mask before you put anybody else's mask on. And it doesn't mean that you don't care about other people. It just means that you have to realize that you have to master yourself before you can really be effective and help other people to grow and to prosper, because you never know who's watching you. Right. And trust me, you're always being watched.
Yes, this is true, especially in today's age, right? Yep. The cameras everywhere. Absolutely. Yeah. So let's go to section 2, and
that's your analysis. That's who you are.
Yep. So section 2, neuroprimal identity archetype analysis. So my archetype is a lion. You are built for command, precision, and movement with meaning. The lion knows who they are, even when others don't see it yet. You're in the stage of early commander, working towards elder architect, but still facing eternal friction between vision and completion. Absolutely. Top strengths: clear sense of direction, fast decision-making when it matters, emotional stability under pressure. Potential pitfalls: delayed execution on known truths, internal conflict between knowing and doing, over planning instead of rapid closure. This one right here, this one like stung my heart. I was like, some bitch. Yeah, because like I said earlier, and I saw a couple of new people came in the chat, but and I'll address them in a minute. But like when you see things about yourself, I mean, like every year, and I'm sure that of course as a professor you have to give your students evaluation, right? But also I assume either like the dean or the assistant dean, one of them have to give you your evaluation, and like 98% of it may be great, but that little percent, you're like, man, I should have had 100%. It could just be your ego or whatever the case is, but like you just see like the two little things, you're like, shit.
Yeah.
So, like, when I saw the over planning instead of rapid closer, I said, that's me. God damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, yeah, definitely. Oh, shout out to my man, Intellectual Soapbox. Salute, salute, salute. That's my guy right there. Oh, man. Culture Invasion Podcast, man. Guys, you guys got to make sure that you also check out his channel and drop a link to your channel too. But also make sure that you guys do subscribe to Todd's channel. So he does have. So I know that you do have two channels, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. So you have the Science of Self Mastery, and then you have How to Be Happy TV. So you
Yeah.
definitely want to make sure that you do subscribe to both. And yes, absolutely, Culture Invasion, man. So I gotta give him, public flowers, man. This is my guy, right? So I didn't even know that he was gonna be live, and so yeah, you got to send me the links on WhatsApp, bro. By the way, but so I didn't even know that he was gonna be live, and I just happened to be just happened to be on YouTube, and then I saw him live, and I was seeing like little like cuts and edits of like videos that he's put together, and I mean the quality is A1. So I definitely see that this guy can be, um, he can have a really big channel, and I love the fact that he's having fun doing what he's doing, before he gets monetized. But I know he's gonna get monetized sooner rather than later, because I think the new YouTube rule is, I think you need 500 subscribers, if I'm not mistaken, right? 500 subscribers, and then I think maybe, is it 2,000 watch hours?
Oh, they
Because
lowered it. Okay.
Oh yeah, they lowered it. Yeah, because see, yeah, for us, we had to get 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch
4,000 watch
hours.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah, that was when I used to do like man, listen, I used to do those like those 3 to 4 hour live streams religiously. I'm like, I need those watch hours. Now I'm like, yeah, I can do them 90 minutes and get my black ass off. Yeah, but shout out to Culture Invasion, man. Definitely has some good content, and I believe he's going to be down the way next week. So hopefully we can link up and do content face to face, man. Says I appreciate it too, man. So this dude just leaves his live stream and moderates mine, man. I'll tell you, man, that's a real one right there, man. So salute to him. Salute to him.
Yeah, I'd like to, some of your moderators. I'd like to kind of meet them and stuff like that, because I'm going to be doing more things on my channels. Just so that your audience will know too, is that the Science of Self Mastery is the content for my website called Silverio.com, and
I think I pinned it.
I'm in India, Latin America, and North America, and I'm looking for representatives that could represent Science of Self Mastery in Africa and then also Europe. So we're global at this point, and looking to expand.
Perfect, man. Perfect. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Let me just get back to, okay. So yeah, the pitfalls, identity migration mission, convert stored power into daily movement. Let your actions prove what your identity already knows. Okay, section 3, interpretation and narrative. You're at a high level threshold where you know exactly who you're becoming and have the eternal discipline to stay the course. But beneath the surface, there's one critical fracture: the tension between desire and traction. You've likely helped others stay on course, but you're noticing. Hold on. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So you're noticing a deeper need to streamline your own pathway, not for validation, but for completion. I know what I want, but I'm not getting there. That's not just a thought. That's a battle cry. Now this one hurt too. I was like, hey, this is a little bit harsh. I almost wanted to send this back and be like, hey, yo, are you writing these answers?
No,
No, I'm trolling.
yeah,
But you know, no, but it's good to actually hear some, some real, critique about yourself, right? It's really good.
well, it's not meant to be hurtful, but
No,
it's meant to be revealing, you know?
yes, absolutely. Like, when I make when I made the joke about like the evaluations and things of that sort, right? Because there's a way that we perceive ourselves, right? And sometimes we have this proverbial mask on, but then like someone could bring it to our attention and say, wow, you know what? I never really thought about like these are things that I actually do. Or
Mhm.
maybe I thought that I may do these things seldomly, but actually I think I do this pretty often.
Mhm.
Right. So because if someone does something seldom, you can say, well, that's not really like that person. But if someone does things, on a repetitive basis, maybe not
Yeah.
necessarily every day, but often enough to where it's noticed by multiple people around them,
Yeah.
that's something that you fucking do. You know
Right.
what I mean? So,
Right. Right.
yeah. So I was like, you know what? Like, because this isn't the first time that I've heard it being brought to my attention where, like, it's taken me, time to like I over plan, right? So I completely understand that.
Yeah.
Where was
But
that?
let's go back to the over planning. Part of that is because of it's not just you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so you got to make sure that, like you said, I's are dotted, T's are crossed, because if if you're not successful, I was going to say exitoso. If you're not successful, then you're not the only one that suffers, but your son
Right.
could
Yes.
yeah. So even though we understand this part, but we also can rationalize why that is as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an excellent point, right? Because we have to, so we have to kind of break that down because, like, in a sense where it's just one person out for self, as opposed to when you have people depending on you, whether it's your wife or young children, longtime girlfriend or whatever. But when you have people dependent on you,
Yeah.
your actions not only affect you, but they affect the people around you. Now,
Yeah.
I do know that most of the expats, their children are either grown, right, and pretty much self-sufficient, so they're pretty much on their own.
Mhm.
So whatever mistakes that they make, that falls on them.
Mhm.
Now, all of us don't have the liberty for that, like, um, you know, um, the Flyboy Way, Philly Dom, yourself, Andre Love Crossing Borders, um, right? So because we have people who depend on us,
Correct.
right? Well,
And something else I want to kind of mention too is that people can choose, what their life path will be.
mhm,
But understand too that if your life path is working in someone else's dream, there may come a time where that person or that entity may decide that you no longer fit. So it's important that we don't have our identity based on how someone else may or may not validate us. Because when we're working for someone else's dream, they never pay us what we're worth. They pay us what the job is worth. Our value is far more than that. But what happens is that we've been conditioned to think that our value is solely based on pieces of paper and
mm,
the value of the pieces of paper that we have in the bank account. That isn't the case. For example, if you were to, and this is a whole nother thing that's part of the science of self-mastery, is estate planning, that if you were to look at the value of your birth certificate alone, your birth certificate is worth, depending on where you are in your lifespan, up to $100 million. And that is in terms of your energy. And that's in terms of what, if your birth certificate were sold on the open market as an investment, that would be the amount that they could get for that investment. But you would never know that because of the system that we're born into. I say that to say this: you are valuable, and you have every tool necessary to recoup that value because of your energy and your intellect and your work ethic and all these different things. They have a value. So it's not just working for somebody else and this is what they pay you, and oh man, that there's nothing more. That's the conditioning that we've had all our lives. But the Science of Self-Mastery is here to let you know how valuable you are, but it's dependent upon what you are willing to do and willing to become.
Yes. Agreed. I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. Let's see. All right, let me finish these. Let me finish these, and then let's see what else. Time to close the distance between vision and evidence. I like section 5 where it talks about action items, right?
Yep.
Action missions. So,
Yep.
pardon me, that's my word cat, right? Action items.
But
yeah. So, right, and I think that when it comes to all of, especially men, and I don't know if any of you guys had done this, but when I was younger, I remember my parents used to have like this planner, and they would write, meetings or whatever, whatever they had going on in this planner. And I would just pride myself on just remembering everything. And it wasn't until maybe about a year before my son was born, I started to think, you know what, maybe I should start writing stuff down. And then I kind of flirted with the idea. But then, like, as my son started getting older, and then now, like, he's in sports year-round basketball, year-round football, year-round karate, like, I have to pick and choose, like, it's even when I'm traveling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to pick and choose my little pockets, right, of when I'm traveling. And I have to like write these things down. So long story short, writing things down and having action items is extremely important. Not only does it help you remember, but it also holds yourself accountable, because you can see something that whether you're putting it like in your iPad or iPhone or Android phone, or whatever it is that you use on a daily basis. Because I put my meetings or whatever, like I put that in my my phone, so I get notifications every day. I mean, to the point where even where I'm talking about taking my vitamins, even if I'm going for a walk, like everything has a notification, right?
Mm.
And it's good to hold yourself accountable. And I think, and I think when it comes to men, right, because having a passport is a luxury, but it's also a purpose.
Yeah. One way that I say choose one high impact task every day,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say ring the cash register, right? You got to add some value. There's got to be some value that you do, some high impact, some valuable thing that you do every single day.
Right.
Whether it's be tell someone very important, you call someone very important to you and tell them that you love them.
Yeah.
Right. An act of random kindness for a stranger. Right.
Yeah.
Those things are impactful, because what they then do is that they create something within you that becomes greater than you are. Right.
Yep.
Act of kindness because you're a kind person, a random act of kindness for someone, and don't expect anything in return. And if they say something, hey, you know what, just pass it forward, because those things are invaluable. And those are the things that that cause you to be remembered long after you're gone. And that's kind of how I interpret that. Choose one high impact task every day, is to, whatever it is, a random act of kindness, helping old ladies across the street, whatever you deem it to be.
Yep.
Right. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay. All right. And I believe you're at number 2, the know and show rule. Yeah. So you could break this down.
All right. So if you already know it, you prove it physically within 48 hours, no carryover. So if you know something, right? For example, you and I have talked about this before. One thing I know is that if a man does 40 push-ups a day, he's 95% less likely to have some sort of heart incident. Okay. So if I know that, then prove it physically. Do the push-ups. Or do the jump rope, or do the walk,
jump rope, yep.
Right? Or eat the fresh fruit. Put the candy bar away. Stop drinking drink the Coca-Cola Zero, no sugar. Don't drink the regular. Whatever it is, if something that you already know, you prove it physically within 48 hours, no carryover. So you do it that day. You don't, or you do it within 2 days. You don't say, wait, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it next week. No, if you know it, do it. And that causes you to act responsibly now, right?
Yep, absolutely. And then the weekly reflection.
Yeah, that's key. Every week. And I was talking to a client today, and this morning, I said, a lot of times people plan tomorrow. So I know you plan for tomorrow tonight. Right? Yeah. And so then at the end of your week, you celebrate your successes on the weekend. Hey, you know what? I had this plan. This was successful, and then you celebrate it. However you celebrate it doesn't mean that you got to go out and get drunk or something like that. But you celebrate the wins. And even though that you may have losses, you don't beat yourself up about it, but then you plan for the following week. How are you going to rectify it? How are you going to get better? And the Atomic Habits book is really important. It said, just a 1% change in direction. If a plane just changed the angle in 1%, it would end up somewhere totally different if it went in that direction. So just look to improve 1% every day. 1% better than you were yesterday, 1% better next week than you were this week. And that will help you out immensely. But knowing who you are is vital in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with that. I think self-reflection is important, and also, right, kind of goes back into all of these, but holding yourself accountable. What did you get accomplished this week? All right. So what was I consistent on this week? Where can I circle back and become better next week? So it's just basically a weekly evaluation, right? As we talked about, like when it comes to employers, like, sometimes we'll get a bi-yearly evaluation where we get, one every 6 months, or, but most employers usually give one typically at the end of the year, or the fiscal year, pardon me. So I completely get that.
Well, I mean, I think if, for example, if you get evaluated once a year or once every 6 months, people's attention span is like 30 seconds. So if you do weekly evaluations, then that gives you the blueprint on how you can basically improve, right? So in business, they talk about KPIs. Let's talk about KPIs in terms of our personal selves as well. How can I improve every single day? I don't have to get up at 4:30 every morning to do something, because sometimes I want to sleep in, so that if I sleep in, am I going to punish myself for that? No, I have to be honest with myself and say, if there's something I want to do, right, I can do it, but I also have to give myself grace, because I'm the only me that I have.
Right.
But I do want to evaluate myself on a weekly basis. or I do want to evaluate myself every 3 days, however you choose to. But don't wait 6 months, don't wait a year, because we're lazy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just in general, we're lazy. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then next thing you know, we're 30 pounds overweight when we could have put the candy bar away, or not eat that piece of cake or whatever it is. But we always want to say, well, tomorrow. Well, we got to evaluate that. We got to figure out, what do we want in our lives? Who is it that we want to be? What are the things we want to exhibit? And we have to realize that it's only us. The only person responsible is us. If it's to be, it's up to me. I am the only superhero I will ever meet.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then eliminate the gray zone. Yeah, I like this too, because when you have like tasks or goals that you maybe it piques your interest, but it's not something that keeps your interest. It piques your interest, but it doesn't keep your interest, right?
Right.
So I think that's important, right? Because what we want is, I like where it says binary decisions, right? So clear decisions, black and white. There's no gray area. It's either yes or no. Yes, you're going to stick to this, or no, throw it out. I think when it comes to a lot of us, and we have this concept of where we want to do good in so many things, or be masters at everything. But, and I think I said this on Tuesday, but it's actually beneficial to really become at least a master of one thing. Once you master that, then you can go down and try to master something else. But
Yeah.
I think that we have this Swiss Army knife syndrome, right? To where we want to be able to kind of have these multiple pockets of where we're good at, and that's cool. But I would say that if you master one thing, and like you got it hands down mastered, that's going to be better than being good at 4 or 5 multiple things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say that the most important thing to master is to master yourself, master your emotions,
Absolutely.
all of those things. When we talk about the binary decisions, yes or no, it's like if in your morning breakfast, the chicken contributes, but the ham is committed. Right? Because the chicken contributes the eggs and continues on, but the ham is the one that gives up his life for your breakfast. So we want to basically be committed to our lives, right? Even at we have to be so committed that we're willing to lose our life, because essentially that's what we do.
Right.
If we're not all into our life, somebody else will be all in for us. They will make the decisions for us.
Right.
Right. So
yeah, I agree with that. Now my only pushback is there's no pork on my fork, so it's chicken and turkey, dog.
Okay,
turkey bacon.
Either one you eat, right? The one that you eat is committed, right? The one that you eat
I got you. I got you.
Turkey on Thanksgiving, right? Let me go ahead and lay on King's plate.
Oh, that turkey overcommitted for Thanksgiving, brother. Oh man. And then the last one is teach your legacy in real time.
Yeah. And that you do that by default every day, right?
Yeah.
With your son. But for those who don't have kids, you can teach, the way that you build legacy, if you don't have, children, is that you become an example for kids in your neighborhood, right? Here in Columbia, my goal is to create a legacy through the youth soccer team that I created, right? And so the values and the goals that I have, the values we have is, God, Dios, familia, comunidad. God, family, community.
Community. Yep.
And we when we start practicing, we're in a circle that we pray, we sing the national anthem, and then at the end we all come together, we stretch, and then we say those values. And hopefully the idea is that you want to create people that are quality people. The idea is that maybe 30, 40 years from now, when they have their own families, they'll remember that that melanated coach that they had, that was from the United States, that taught them some values and that supported their families and helped them to become better people. And now their families have the benefit of what they learned while they're in my club. So that's, for me, that's teaching my legacy in real time, is that I'm being an example, not only to my stepson, but also to kids in the community. And it's kind of interesting because there are a lot of times people speak to me, they'll call me, coach, or, call me profi, and I have no idea who they are. I have absolutely no idea. But as I said, people are always watching you. And so that is teaching my legacy in real time, is trying to be an example, trying not to be that crazy American that sometimes we're labeled with, right? So
absolutely. And so for me, coaching as well, like it's so interesting because, like, as you mentioned, like I'll be out with my son, and I'll be somewhere with my son, and I won't even know that it'll be a kid either either on like the younger football team or like an older football team, and and they'll say, "Hey, coach, what's up, coach?" And I just say, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Who is this kid?" And but sometimes my son is not there, so like I have to like really, really like pretend, but like like sometimes like my son, like he'll know, like if I don't like know like who the kid is, he'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's such and such," and I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, "Hey, yeah, how you doing?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's your boy looking out for you, man. That's what's up.
Yeah, but it's having an impact, and just giving those those life lessons, structure, as you mentioned, you know you pray, and also and also having a structure, as you said, God, family, community, right? Praying together, working out together, and one of the things that, and not to segue, but one of the things that we do is, we try to put on, like events where the kids are together, where like, they're eating together, or like we'll like get some tickets for a high school game, and all, at least most of the kids will be there together. But because the thing is, like, all of these kids are coming up together, so they all look out for each other. So I think that's important.
Yeah.
And, all right, let me see. I got a couple of let's see. Okay, Culture Invasion says, "You get the life that you work for." I agree with that. He says, "Very true, Todd." I'm not sure what he's talking about. I'm sorry, but we were so engaged in the conversation. Like I saw like the comments, but I try not to segue until like I can get like a clean break, or at least it makes sense. So
we can take your survey down so we can get to these, so we can see them on the full screen.
Okay. Hold on. Let me.
Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. I still use a small daily planner in my electronic stuff. Yeah. I recently traveled to Panama. I plan to go back. Shout out to my man, Sir Yeetus. Definitely check out his channel as well. This is my guy. My God. I'm telling you, the ladies over there, compared to the U.S., it's night and day. Understood, brother. I've seen a black soldier get deleted in front of me because he didn't want to put down the junk food. Yeah. I saw him get carried out in a black bag. It changed my perspective immediately. Yeah, it's nasty work, man. Nasty work. Yeah, um, MTV MTV had this they would call them VJs, but essentially, because music television, so it would be like a video DJ, but essentially she was a host who worked for MTV. She seemed really cool, and it's been all over the internet that she ended up passing away. Now she unfortunately passed away from cancer, but I was looking on her Instagram, and she was only 52 years old.
Mm.
And she looked like she took care of herself. But I mean, how well do we know if someone's taking care of themselves? Because one of the reasons why I'm mentioning this is because there's another popular YouTuber, and I don't even know if the guy was 40 years old yet. His YouTube name was like P2. The name, he had about 4 million subscribers.
Mm.
And he died from I'm sorry, he got deleted. Well, he died from a heart attack. Yeah, we're almost 2 hours in, so yeah, he died from a heart attack.
Mm.
And it's just crazy. Not even 40 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Culture Invasion was laughing at something I said.
Yeah, he was laughing at my my breakfast analogy.
Oh. Yeah, because at first I didn't know where you was going with it, because you said ham, and I was like, hold on, ain't no pork on my fork.
That's for those who eat the bacon. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
No, man.
You've never eaten pork in your entire life?
Yeah. So like, I'm 40 now, so I haven't had it. I haven't had it in 30 years. Yeah,
Okay.
since I was like 10.
Okay.
Yeah, 30 years, man. 30
So
years.
what's it feel like to be 40? I was 40 once, but what's it feel like 40 in the modern era, air quotes, modern era?
It doesn't for me it really, I don't really see a difference. The only time is like when when I'm talking to my son or his friends or whatever, and like I'm like, oh, I was born 1985, and they're like, oh, yo, you're old, babe, you're old. I'm like, what? I'm like, yo, you better cut it out.
That's
Yeah,
all right.
yeah,
85. Okay. What was
yeah,
I doing in 85?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep that secret with me. So I'm not gonna.
You probably
Yeah.
was doing a lot in 85, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that right there.
Marty, Todd McFly,
Yeah.
Todd McFly.
To your point, man, it's very important that you take care of yourself, but you really got to make the impact now. You got to start mastering yourself. You can start mastering yourself tonight, man. I mean, that's important. Go ahead with someone.
So so this is Sir Yeetus, but I want to get back to what you said. Someone can always look good on the outside. It's the inside that mainly counts. You can't see your internal organs and damage it took. That's why I advocate do blood work at least once a month if possible. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, and my man Sir Yeetus, thank you for your service as well. Yeah, because military is deep.
What branch was he in, or is he still in?
I think Yeetus. I think Yeetus is retired. Yeah, Yeetus, are you retired or are you active? I can't recall. Okay. And Army.
Yeah. Army, okay.
Are you active still? Oh, okay. Wait, but are you retired vet? I'm guessing he's retired.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for your service, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were so okay, gotcha. All right. Okay,
You know
understood.
what? And that happens a lot in in the service. That it's you kind of wish that there were systems that would take better care of our veterans.
Yeah.
Um, and got injured in Afghanistan. Thanks for your service.
Yeah.
Because I
Absolutely.
mean that's life changing. Um, circumstances. You go into to serve, and you know it's tough. It's tough. And then these are things that they have to deal with the rest of their lives. I have uh, several friends who have medical issues. One friend that she has uh, got anthrax, and from time to time she has flare ups from that. Um,
Mm.
our veterans, man, they sacrifice an awful lot, an awful lot, and
Yeah. Yeah.
shout out to them, um, shout out to them.
Yeah. No. No. It's very true. Very true. I mean, I like a lot of the supporters, my supporters, and I'm sure some of yours, Todd, that are veterans. I've had some private conversations, behind the scenes, and um, man, I've heard some stuff, and I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, yeah. He says 18-year-old me be calling me an idiot right now, but I have no regrets. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's good that there are no regrets. But I would say this too, that when I'm talking about self mastery, a lot of people get it that are former military, and I do have some from veteran clients, and we're dealing with their trauma. We're
Mhm.
dealing with. I'll just say it this way. When you have someone that's 18, 19 years old and they're going into the military and they're managing, $1 million worth of equipment, and then they have different rules of engagement that they go through. There's a lot of responsibility. The power of life and death is actually in their hands. When they're in country such as Afghanistan, or they're off in foreign lands, that they have to exhibit certain levels of discipline at a very young age. And depending upon how long that they've been in, when they get out and they come back into the civilian world, and they have identified themselves as a soldier or as a Marine or as a corpsman or Navy or whatever branch that they're in and whatever job that they did, that becomes their self-identity. And when they come back to civilian world and civilians don't treat them with the same level of respect, there's a fracture that takes place there. And then that cascades into a whole lot of other things. So, we really need to be understanding of the veterans, where, they have so much responsibility, and then they come to the civilian world and the civilians don't understand what they've been through, and they don't give them that level of respect. That is a fracture. That goes directly to their self schema, who they are, because they identified with something that's outside of themselves. And so that's part of what the Science of Self Mastery does. When I speak with veterans, I help them to regain that who they are, not who they were, but who they are, because they were always that dude. They were always that man or that woman before they went into the service. And that's why the service selected them. That's why the service trained them, because they understood who they were getting. But they don't continue to help that self-esteem, that self-schema, when they leave that organization. So that's kind of another reason why I created the Science of Self-Mastery, is to help those men and women who have lost themselves by doing a particular job. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm gonna keep you big there, because I have two more questions.
Okay. You
So
trying to see my action, or you looking at my guns? What's what?
no, yeah, listen, man, I look upon nothing. Man, look upon the chat, man. I look at no gun there, so no, but so my next question is that um for for a veteran passport blue book gentleman traveling, what would you say would be the most intricate thing that they can learn from the science of self-mastery?
The most intricate?
Yes.
That's an interesting word when you say intricate, because it really is not. It's pretty simple. How you view yourself is most important. A man or woman will never elevate themselves past their own self-identity, how they look at themselves or how they talk to themselves. A lot of people talk, they talk terrible to themselves. They speak bad things into their existence. They speak bad things about themselves. You're the only you that you have, and there will never ever be another you as long as there's a creation. There's only one you. And so why would we want to say bad things about ourselves, right? And so the idea is the most intricate thing, to use your words, the most intricate thing is to appreciate yourself, to recognize that you are not lacking in anything, that the only limits that you have are the limits of your imagination. And so if you become limitless in your imagination, if you think bigger, you can overcome whatever challenges or whatever issues that you currently have. The problem for most of us is that we don't think big enough.
Perfect. And then the last question that I have for you of the evening is, what's the next step with the science of self-mastery?
Thank you for that. The next step for Science of Self-Mastery is to automate the surveys, so that when people take the surveys, that they can get some information right away. We're working on that. I have a software development company in India that is part of the Science of Self-Mastery, that we're working on that now. Shout out to Samant. To automate it and to make it available to more and more people. Part of the issue is with anything, much like the social media channels, is that if no one knows that you're there, it's very difficult to help people. And so the next step is to become more and more aware. That's why I appreciate what you're doing with me being on your channel, is to help me to get the word out there. Then also, if you want to email me directly at severio@proton.me and request a survey, I will send the survey out to you. And then you take the survey, send it back, and then we can start having conversation with where you want to go, what you want to do. So, I'm in. To answer your question in the back channel, I'm in India, or Asia, if you will, because I have an Asian, I have a gentleman in India who is the regional director for Asia. I have a regional director for Latin America. I also have a regional director for North America. If there are other people that would like to get involved with the Science of Self-Mastery and to help promote and to get these diagnostic tools out for people to kind of help them understand where they are and how they could improve their lives, please, reach out to me. If we all work together, we can all win. And there's more room at the top than at the bottom. So I see another thing in the chat. I'm sorry. It says, no, I don't live in the U.S. I live in Colombia. I live in South America. The Garden of Eden. I live in the Garden of Eden.
Yidis. He lives in Bogota, Colombia, and I think he's been living there for the past 4 years.
It'll be 5 years in October, on and off.
Yeah. Okay, so 5 years. So 5 years. But he's from the Ohio State. You got to say.
There you go. There you go. That's right. Yeah. My nationality is Ohio.
I got you. Yeah. No, I think that it's important it's important, you know, what you're doing. Let's see. Hold on. I want to retire in another country in 10 years or less.
You know, that's interesting that he says that in 10 years or less. Just know that there's something called 2030 that the United Nations is trying to put together. So I would highly recommend that people take a look at that. And we know that 2030 is about 4.5 years away. And so take a look at what that program is, what they're looking to do. There's also this thing called the 15-minute cities that is being discussed. You know, if you could do it, well, I would say plan on following your heart and your dream as quickly as possible. Because, you know, if you wait 10 years, you're going to be 10 years older. Why not do it sooner?
Well, I mean, you know, I got 7 more years. Unfortunately, I got 7 more years.
I mean, you could bring your son. Listen, man. There are people all over the world that even though that they're in one country, they travel to other countries with their kids as well.
We know.
Yeah, I'm just saying. The art of speaking without speaking.
You see that? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you, bro. I hear you.
Yeah, they don't teach us how to turn it off pretty much.
Yeah. And that's by design. That's by design.
Yeah. That's what hurts me the most. Illegal immigrants are getting 5-star treatment, yet a veteran can't even get help to get housing. Yeah, I never understood that.
Yeah, I know someone who experienced that very thing, and they just got housing. And I mean, it's I get it. And here's the interesting thing, though. If we were to look at, and I know that Andre in Love Crossing Borders, he talks about this a lot. Mm-hmm. If you want to look at the top medical countries in the world, right, in terms of service, I'll just use dentistry for an example.
Sure.
You know, I had a root canal that went bad, and half my face was swollen up. You know, it was terrible. To go to the dentist saw me at 7:00 at night, right? Mm-hmm. 7:00 at night, went to the dentist office. Now, how often can you go to a dentist office at 7 p.m. in the United States? 7 p.m.
Never.
They got me hooked up, right? The whole nine. The procedure cost me $200 to redo root canal. The whole $200.
Yeah.
Now that is $2,500 easy in the States.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so it is medically speaking, Colombia, as last I checked, was ranked 40th in the world, and the United States was ranked 70th.
Yes, I would say that that's I know that Colombia is ranked higher than the United States when it comes to overall healthcare. I know that you just highlighted dentistry, but you know, it's actually good, right? Because you know, so like I have some dental work right here, so like front of my teeth, you know, I need that fixed, and I'm actually going to be getting that fixed very, very soon. And as you mentioned, like they're very like willing to work with me as far as like the flexibility, right? Because as you mentioned, no place in the United States is going to come to your house. You know, no dentist is coming to your house at 7, 8 o'clock at night, or unless you're rich and you have them like on some sort of payroll, right? You know what I mean? Like that's not going to happen. Like at like 3:30, 4 o'clock the latest. 4 o'clock the latest.
Right.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, that's it. Because at 4:30, they're at 4:30, they're hopping into their G-Wagon and they're getting out of there.
Yeah, I'm sending you something there. and I just want you to take a look. You don't have to comment, but just take a look on your WhatsApp.
Yep, sure. Okay.
That's where I got my procedure.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
So
I think I may need a procedure there as well. So
let me know, man. I got you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
root canals. I need braces. I need everything.
It's very affordable, man. I mean, it was in all the natural stuff, right? So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Yeet. Because we're winding down, but you my man, so I'm letting you fire off your questions. Go ahead, Yeet. I want to live a simple life, an affordable house with a nice backyard to plant vegetables in. Oh, that's easy, man. I mean, yeah, that's easy. Like, you know, so I mean, you mentioned Panama. Panama is nice. I mean, Colombia is nice. You know, so it all depends on like if are you trying to be near like the mainland, or are you trying to be near a beach, or are you trying to be in the country? We could talk about all of this offline, Yedis, but it's very attainable, and due to the fact that you know you're a veteran, you're still going to be able to get your VA benefits, and I believe your VA benefits. I'm not a veteran, so I don't want to speak out of term here, but I do know that I believe VA benefits. Um, I believe that my lawyer can assist with that.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to what exactly, I would have to find out for you, but I do know that veterans have used, you know, that law firm, and it seems to have worked out really well. So veterans, I would say this, as you had mentioned, Edith, when you said that it upsets you how veterans are not necessarily getting the 5-star treatment, or at least not necessarily they don't have to necessarily get the 5-star treatment, but you have illegals that are getting 5-star treatment and veterans are not getting 5-star treatment, right? You know what I mean? Like that's that's a clusterfuck in itself. But either way, right? Long story short,
Yeah, that's a very military term you just used, man. And
what?
you used it pretty well, man.
Oh, oh, clusterfuck.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, and, you know, I have I have brothers that you know that were Marines, so
Okay. That
yeah,
explains it. Yeah.
yeah. But nonetheless, right. So I will say that outside of the United States, the veterans they seem to be very happy, whether it's in Colombia or other places, but Colombia specifically, due to the fact that Todd is in Bogota. I have property in Medellin, so you know we're very in tune when it comes to Colombia, guys. So I will say that you will get treated very well. Let's see. Okay, what's your question? Oh, and 2025, is marriage worth it? Stay tuned for my next live stream on Monday. No, I am going live on Monday though. But I mean, the short answer, like if you're saying in the United States, it's very slim to none. Oh, he laughed. Yeah, because I did it kind of like the superhero-ish way. The next time on Batman.
Right.
Remember Batman with Adam West? I'm bugging as we winding down, but remember
Right.
Batman with Adam West? They used to do the pow and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Same bat time, same bat
time, same bat channel. No, but I will say this: in the United States, it's slim to none. It's just that it's so hard to know whether you're gonna get a square deal. I mean, even when it comes to child support and things like that, and so because what and I do know like some good quality women, right? And it sucks for them because like they get frustrated when they can't, when a good quality man is so afraid to marry them, and it's because like how the way the laws have been written, it doesn't benefit the man, and you know, and you see good quality men, they're getting lied on, right? You know, they're getting their names thrown in the mud, and today's society is guilty before proven innocent. So it's almost like why kind of put yourself through that when you have men that are going abroad and they're in happy and successful marriages where, knock on wood, if they were to break up, I know Colombia law, like, whatever you put into the marriage is what you get out of it, and it's split, and that's fair. But let's just say, I don't want to use Todd here. I'll just use
You can use
random
me. I
name.
don't mind. You can use me, man.
Okay. All right. So but let's just say Todd hypothetically, is worth 500 million by next week, right? And he ends up breaking up with his wife. He ends up getting to keep that 500 some million, unless she did something to help him earn it. But if she did not, he gets to keep that. Where you see in the United States, you have guys, men, where they're getting taken to task, and Drake always has this famous line, you wasn't with me when I was shooting in the gym. Essentially that means like you weren't with me when I was putting in the work to get the money, and
Right.
so it's high risk. I would say in the United States it's doable, but it's buy at your own risk, like buyer beware. You want to get on a better playing field, if you will, to where and it's outside of the West.
Yeah, and part of it is, the legal system is
Right.
different. What I would recommend is if anybody is looking to tie the knot, write your own contract before you get married, because contract law is still supreme. And so, some people call it a prenuptial agreement or whatever you want to call it. It's a contract, and life is about social contracts, really. But a lot of people get married and then they have no plan, nothing. They have no contract between the two of them that if they split up, what will happen. And so what happens in the United States is the courts come in and the courts decide based upon their jurisdiction. But if you have a contract prior to getting married and you break up, your contract supersedes whatever it is that those courts want to do, because it's a contract. And they don't supersede contract. According to the 10th Amendment in the United States, contract law is supreme. So if you're looking to get married, not just because she has a big J-Lo and a smile, write that contract, have that contract. And if they don't sign the contract, don't get married, because you have a social contract anyway, and you want to be the one that provides the jurisdiction, not someone else making the decision, an arbitrary decision on your behalf, in terms of what the child support would be, if there is going to be child support, who gets what. If you guys decide that prior to getting married, and you present that in the event of a divorce, you present that, you guys control the whole thing.
Now I do have a question, and not necessarily a pushback, but more or less an inquiry, because I've been told that a judge can actually throw that out if he or she sees fit. Is that accurate?
No, 10th Amendment says that no person can. I mean, it depends. They'll try to say that this was when it was written, in their view, probably would be, whole precedence or whatever. But if you do this long before you guys get, go through a situation of a breakup or something, it's a contract. There's nothing, they can't supersede somebody else's contract. So I mean, if it's, you've heard these things that have been done, right? But in my view, those things have been done illegally, especially, let's say, for instance, if you set up a trust. Now, if you set up a trust, no, they can't throw it out, because the trust is a third party, and the trust could have dictates, and is run by the trustees. So yeah, I mean, it's there are ways, administrative ways and legal ways that, and I'm not giving legal advice certainly, but there are ways that things can be done, especially if you set up family trusts and those contracts are valid. Then there's not much that a judge can necessarily do. Or if a judge does do it, then you can basically win an appeal.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess like a lot of guys are weary about that, because like, and what you're saying makes sense, right? But we know this is like the United States of I can do whatever I want sometimes, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's why it's so scary. It's so scary, because it's like, guys work so hard, and get resources, especially the military guys or whatever, right? And you guys put your lives on the line, you know what I mean? Like you just went to Afghanistan, got injured, you know what I mean? And then it's just like, okay, he gets married and then find out his wife takes 50%. It's like, you know what I mean? I was gonna say B-word, but it's like, yo, you weren't with me when I was in Afghanistan getting my ass shot at. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell? No, man.
Well, with the prenups, like if there's not full disclosure of assets, if this was written under coercion or duress, if one party had no opportunity to consult, an attorney, all these things, there are certain things that will violate the prenups, right? But again, it a lot of it has to do with consent. If you strong arm somebody to sign it, well, yeah, that doesn't mean that they consented to it. But I'm just saying that. Well,
that's like coercion, yeah.
Coercion, yeah. But I'll give you an example. I was, most people that know me know that I have gone through the decoupling process. And going through the decoupling process with the woman formerly known as, right? We wrote up our own agreement and we presented it, but it was something that we had done together, no coercion. There was full disclosure, and we presented that to the judge, and they accepted it. Now, it wasn't a quote prenup, but it was a contractual agreement that we had written up while we were going through the decoupling process. So,
yeah.
But I still think that if you are together and you get married and then you create the trust and you have the agreement between the two of you, and it can be proven that this was an agreed upon non-coercion situation, and you have full disclosure and all of these different things, that it should hold up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So great question by Yeetus. This is actually a really, really good question.
And it goes to self-mastery too, because this is estate planning.
Yeah,
for sure. And that's part of what I do in terms of, again, not giving legal advice, but helping people to go through like that estate process. I have a couple that I'm working with now that, they are building their estate together as well. And I'm helping walk them through that process. So yeah, okay. This is right in line with that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, that's good to know, right? Because I think especially in today's, in today's world, no matter where you are in the world, everybody wants their assets protected, right? And I think,
I like that play on words.
What?
their assets.
Yep. Yep. All right. So does dating advice from Gen X, older millennials apply to today's dating market? Do you mind if I go first, or will you want
No,
to go?
I have no comment. I'm out the game, so
Oh yeah. Well, so I would say I would say that it would have to be someone who was recently within the game with it, I would say within the past 5 to 10 years, right? Because I think I think like every 10 years or so things get different. Things change, things get different. So like if you have, and this is no this to you, Todd, but like if you have like someone like, let's just say Todd was single, but he had never used a dating app. He had never met a woman like from social media or anything like that, so he wouldn't necessarily know like the bylaws, if you will, right? Quote unquote bylaws and in that realm. So it would have to be someone who has some, who has some visibility, if you will, in that realm, right? So I think that that's important, at least within like the past 10 years. So someone like, okay, if a guy says, and let's say you this, you're talking to an OG and you say, "Hey, OG, man, I met a woman on Hinged, or I met a woman on Bumble," and he's like, "Yo, what the fuck is that?" You know what I mean? You're like, "Oh, no, this ain't gonna work, OG. This ain't gonna work." You know what I'm saying? So you wanna speak to somebody who has been there recently. And I mean, as recent within like the past 10 years, I would say that one of the reasons why a lot of guys still listen to Dre, because Dre's been married, about 6, 7 years, about 6 years, something like that. You know what I mean? So he's still within that 10-year realm. Let's see. Yes, prenups can be thrown out. Yeah.
But I think a trust.
Sorry. Yeah. This is a Todd response anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah, trust is far superior. A trust is far superior than a prenup.
Yeah, but the thing is, okay, people don't have trust to make the trust.
Well, here's the thing. A trust, if you have, for example, let's say you have a house before you get married and you put it in a trust, then you don't own the asset. The asset is owned by the trust and managed by the trustee. So you don't own the asset. So if you don't own it, it can't be touched.
Okay.
For example, let's say, for example,
Yep.
you have a property, right? And you decide that you're going to create a trust, and you put that property in trust, and the trustee is managing that property. You then get married. That person, after 24 hours decides that they no longer want to be married to you, and they think that they're going to get your house. The house ain't in your name.
Mm-hmm.
The house is, you have access to the house. You can live in the house because the trust says that you can. But then if the person breaks up with you and they're thinking that they're going to get your stuff, you don't own it. There was a soccer player who was getting his salary, and everything was outside of his name. And so when this young lady who you married him and thought that she was going to get the bag by divorce of him, she was going to get half his stuff or whatever. And it found out that wasn't nothing in his name. There was nothing that she could obtain.
Yeah. I'm starting to see a trend now. I don't know if it was the soccer player who did it, or if it was the MMA fighter who did it, who started the trend. Either way, but what I've noticed is that athletes are starting to put like their assets either like under their mom's name or uncle or auntie or whatever, right? And so essentially what ends up happening, the mom or the aunties obviously, gives them access to the money, but it's not legally under their name, right? So, and so I think this is another way of how men are protecting themselves because, right, like the judge looks up and is looking at, I don't know, let's say, he says, you know, Todd Allyn only has, $20,000. He's worth $20,000, right? But it shows that you signed a big ass contract by Adidas, but no, Todd didn't. Yeah, the money was offered to Todd, but guess who signed that contract? It wasn't Todd who got that money from that contract, right? It was Todd's brother. Now Todd has the money, but he doesn't have the money. You get me?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're playing your semantics, but at the end of the day, if the money's being paid to the brother, then Todd doesn't have it.
Right, exactly.
Right. So, exactly. I mean, the thing with the trust is this, that you don't have to be wealthy in order to create a trust, because you already have value. You as a living man or woman, you have value, right? Your energy is valuable. Right. And so that is an asset that the trust can have. And so there's a whole level of stuff that we just have not been taught. That part of the idea of the science of self-mastery, we go into that and we teach people and we educate people on these kinds of things, not from redemption theory or sovereign citizen or all that kind of stuff. It is valid with receipts that these are things that you can do, and they have been done. I mean, the trusts have been around longer than governments have been. And one of the biggest trusts that people they don't know that's a trust is the Vatican. The Vatican is a trust.
Yeah.
And so it's an ecclesiastical trust, which is a high order trust. And a lot of things that it does and it has access to, people can set them up administratively correctly and properly. They too can have a trust. Doesn't matter if you don't have income. You can still set up a trust because you can own your own value and your own energy.
So, and I think that we should definitely do a discussion like highlighting the trust, because I definitely believe in what you're saying. But I do know that there would be pushback, not necessarily on you specifically, but just on the trust, because you see, whether it be athletes, entertainers, actors, whatever, right? People who have a lot of money who have had to give, half of their money, right? Okay, let's take Dr. Dre, right? Dr. Dre, he was a billionaire, but he had to give, I believe, half of his money to his ex-wife, right? I mean, trust me, Dr. Dre is still worth what, like 700-800 million or whatever, but he was over the billion. He was over the billion. Then he had to give half to his ex-wife, right? And it's like, okay, well, a guy who has all of these resources, why does wouldn't someone tell him like, hey, bro, like you need to get a trust or something like that? And sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, because a trust. A trust is administered by a trustee, a third party. And if the trust owns the assets, then, that person doesn't own if a person doesn't own the asset, I mean, it's not theirs, right? The trust owns it. So, this is how families been managing resources for, since the Middle Ages or beyond.
Mm-hmm.
The first trust that we read about was in Genesis chapter 1 through 26.
Yeah.
That was the first trust. That Adam was the trustee of the trust, and the trust and the res, or the property, was the earth, was Eden. And so that's what trusts are based upon, right? And so the idea is that, God was the grantor and Adam was the trustee, because he was supposed to have dominion over the earth. So that's an example. That's one of the first trusts that we see on record. And the trust is a matter of record, right? What is written in the ledger, and that can be proven. And when it was set up. Now, if somebody's going through divorce and all of a sudden they want to rush and create a trust, no, that you can pierce that. You can look through that right away. right? Or if they're getting ready to, if something bad is getting ready to happen, and all of a sudden they want to run and put something in trust, there has to be a time period where this stuff is set up so that it's kind of seasoned, if you will. So it's a matter of pre-planning. Let's not call it a prenuptial. Let's just call it pre-planning.
Yeah, we definitely need to have another conversation highlighting this, because I think this is great.
So upon my deathbed, they will read this statement: I, Todd Allyn, being of sound mind, have spent all my money. Right.
Yeah, I that's hilarious. Eden said the lawyers coach the woman to say under duress. But
well, they do that because they get a third of it, right? Whatever she gets, they get. I mean, it's
Yeah, but you see why men are disregarding marriage altogether. It's been at least 60 years of deceit and lies in the courtroom. I'm older, but not too old. Let's just say women in my era will have a good awakening in 15 to 20 years. Yeah, you're probably okay. So, okay. All right. Yeah. So I figured that you were probably a bit younger than me, because I just turned 40.
Wow.
So, okay.
He's another one that got the taste of milk in his mouth, huh?
Well, actually, you know what? Wait a minute. So if Yidis wasn't if Yidis wasn't Afghanistan, actually, I don't know how old Yidis is. He could be the same age as me. I don't know, because he said early 30s. So I'm thinking he and I are around the same age. I'm thinking he and I are around the same age.
Okay.
Or are you saying that you are early 30s, Yidis? I don't know, but yeah, but. Long story short, I mean, we're over 2 hours and it's closing on midnight, and we will definitely have a continuation of this conversation where we're going to talk about differences between the prenup and the trust and things of that sort, because I think that this is a very interesting and intriguing conversation, and I think that the two kind of get convoluted, right? And this is what puts fear in men of all ages, and especially around the West, where you think that you have this ironclad prenup or written agreement or what have you, and then the judge says, no, fuck you. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa. So that's nasty work.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But Todd, either way, brother, I truly want to thank you for coming on here, twice in 1 week. So I think Tuesday's episode was about 3 hours. So now we're a little over 2 hours. So 5 hours of your time, this week, man. Thank you so much. Definitely appreciate it. The Science of Self-Mastery. As you guys see, I took the, I don't want to call it test, right?
Survey,
right? So I took the survey. I learned some things about myself. I mean, I pretty much knew what it was, but to kind of see it back, I was like, oh, you know what I mean? But we learn, we get better, and I think that the most important thing, on a serious note, is no matter what you do in life, the one thing that you can be a master of is your own self, knowing yourself spiritually, mentally, physically, financially, knowing all of these things. And, once you master yourself, you can continue on your purpose. And, with that being said, stay purposely purposeful. And we are out. Peace.